In the story of Shiva and the Shiva Linga, we're obviously dealing with some kind of a universal or cosmic power that we didn't fully understand until the 20th century with the discovery of nuclear power and nuclear fission. These discoveries that predate modern man are completely changing our conception of the ancient past and connecting us to the true history of humanity, all before the time of the flood.
1971. Eastern India. It was here, at the Sanskrit College in Calcutta, that Eric von Daniken met with Professor Dilip Kanjilal to study the Vedic Sanskrit, an ancient language used in religious Hindu texts.
Professor Dilip Kanjilal has gone through old Indian texts and made modern versions of it. Now it comes out in the old books, the so-called gods. They used flying machines to travel from heaven to earth.
According to the ancient Vedic texts of India, the gods descended from the sky in flying vehicles. They refer to those vehicles as Vimanas. There are very detailed descriptions what these Vimanas looked like, how they traveled from place to place, what was necessary in order to pilot them. All those things are described in ancient Hindu texts that are thousands of years old.
And for Eric, he naturally felt that these Vimanas were real nuts and bolts, aircraft, and of course he's saying these are the vehicles of the ancient astronauts.
When Eric first went to India, he explored a whole bunch of different sites, and he quickly came to the realization that India is a treasure trove for the ancient astronaut theory, because all over India we can find these magnificent temple towers that are referred to as stupas and also vimanas. And so we have to ask ourselves, where did the form for a stupa come from?
Another great contribution of Eric is that he focused on India. Very few people had really studied the ancient Indian civilization, even though it is thousands of years old. And what he saw there were structures which were alleged to have been replicas of Vimanas.
So many Hindu temples in the Far East, they are representations in their architecture, what was going up in the sky. So the upper part of a Hindu temple often is seen as a flying object, as a Vimana.
And basically what we're being confronted with is the realization that these people built in stone objects which they seem to have seen in the sky.
When we look at the most ancient records we have coming out of the Vedic texts in India, there are clear descriptions of aerial battles taking place, Vimanas. So this really starts to raise the question about our own cycle of history. Is it completely linear, or is it possible that we're just starting to rediscover ancient technology that did exist thousands of years ago?
Ancient texts all over the world talk about flying vehicles, people who could fly through the air, flying horses. But it was Eric who really put it together, that the gods weren't just flying around like Superman. They had to get into some kind of nuts and bolts craft, just like we do, and go somewhere. And this was the chariots of the gods.
Enoch tells us about the guardians of the sky who came down. He says they are called fallen angels, and they wanted to have sex with humans. And the offspring of it were giants. So there were sexual contacts between extraterrestrials and the humans.
What does this mean? Well, it's very simple. Eric von Daniken's interpretation was, we are nothing else but hybrids of an extraterrestrial race that jump-started our civilization thousands and thousands of years ago.